Hi, it's Maria Malat, the Sleep Witch, formerly Savvy Parenting. I am here today to talk to you about how to get your baby who has always been on your breast or body feeding onto a bottle. For whatever reason, you may need to have your baby be on a bottle. So the first thing I want to mention is paced bottle feeding. You can find a zillion videos about paced bottle feeding. So I'm not going to go into it in depth here, but ultimately it's about keeping the bottle so that milk is only about halfway in. And your baby really has to work hard to bring that milk out. And it's more like being on the chest and having to do that work. And some of this can prevent preference for a bottle. It's also very respectful to allow your baby to decide with an upright, a more upright position in the bottle, almost perpendicular to the floor. Your baby decides how much they want to eat and when they get to breathe, instead of just gravity pushing the milk in like that. So another thing I want to, there's another version of paced bottle feeding that I'll show you in just a second, but I want to mention that you might need to try a few different bottles. There are some pros to having a bottle that has a wider base of the nipple, sort of where the areola would be, especially if you have had a lot of latching difficulty just with breastfeeding or body feeding. Where you really have had struggles with breastfeeding and you want to make sure that you continue that relationship, you might want to have a bottle where your baby has to open a bit wider and really create an open-jawed latch for your bottle feeding. But for most babies, a bottle like a Dr. Brown's with a kind of, quote, regular looking nipple is going to be just fine. And in some cases, it can be really helpful because it's easier to suck. And if your baby is really frustrated and hungry when they're just learning how to suck a bottle, it might be easier for them to get the milk out. So another thing I want to mention about paced bottle feeding is you can do paced bottle feeding while side holding, facing out. And facing out is going to be what's really helpful for babies who are used to looking up at the person who feeds them on their body. And then suddenly that person is not there, but they still need to eat. It can be really distracting for them to look up at a completely different face and have this completely different feeding apparatus. So we could face outward like this, and you can do paced bottle feeding facing outward. It's the same with the bottle about halfway full through the nipple and just to the side right here. And then baby has a little bit more control than if the gravity were pushing milk into their mouth. So again, starting with a pretty slow flow nipple for most babies, even if they're a little bit older, 3-4 months, that's because it's harder to get milk out of the chest than it is a bottle. And you might want to keep your baby working really hard at this bottle so that, again, we don't form a preference for the bottle because it's so easy. Because as human animals, we are pretty lazy. So that's side lying. And then there's also my favorite position for a baby who really has been saying absolute no to that bottle. No, 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 I will not take that bottle. So I want to suggest trying different bottles, having the person who is not the person who usually feeds from the body out of the house, or at least rooms away, so that we're not hearing that person, we're not smelling that person. We want the baby to be not overly hungry, but about at food time or just a little before food time. Not so hungry that we're gonna be screaming and be really frustrated. We don't know what to do with this bottle. And to really dim those lights, keep those lights dark, and doing one of those positions where baby doesn't have to stare up at this other caregiver while they're eating. We might also do some walking around with baby, doing some calm humming or singing before we go to feed, so that we don't go from an agitated baby right to trying to feed them. So make sure that you start with a calm baby who should be hungry enough. You can start in this position, which this position I love anyway because it's a great gas or colic position where you're really getting those legs kind of pushing into the belly just a little bit, and that really will allow the gas to come out. But also their spine being against you, we still get that comforting, that warmth, but they don't have to stare up at your face. And so again, we're upright enough to do paced bottle feeding. So we get the bottle right in here, and baby can start to take some sips of this bottle. And if it's not going well, they bat it away, they're crying, you might have to do some just helping them not bat it away with trying to tuck in their arms. You might also take a soft blanket and not totally swaddle, but just kind of wrap the arms a little bit if arms are getting in the way. And you can just try and try again. You might need to, if you know that baby's hungry and due for a feed and you're working really hard on this bottle feeding stuff and baby's just like crying, no, I don't want it, you might get up, you might go outside into the fresh air, you might reset, you might sing another song, and then you might, once baby is calm enough, come back and really dim those lights even more, turn it dark, and see if baby will be willing to take a bottle now. And those are my best tips for trying to get your baby onto a bottle. And then while they're practicing, if it's going really well, don't stop doing it. Every day there should be bottle practice. So even if it's just 1.5 ounces, 2 ounces out of the bottle, it's not like we need to be pumping all day long to learn how to work with the bottle. But make sure you don't put all of the frozen milk, if you're using human milk, into this bottle and then have them taste it, really not want it, decide not to try the bottle today, and then you might not be able to use up all of that milk right away, and then you've wasted milk. So start with 1 ounce, 1.5 ounces, 2 ounces when you're just first trying with a bottle. So usually I like to try and get babies onto bottles right around the 2-week mark, where feeding on the body is going really wonderfully. We've addressed all of our challenges, and now we really know what feeding on the body is, and now we can try feeding a different way. But I've also had success with getting bottle-averse babies onto the bottle at 3-4 months. By 5 months, it becomes a lot harder. But at that point, there are other things that we can do to try and get baby some sustenance. And I won't cover that in this video, but feel free to reach out to me. Or if you're just continuing to have trouble with your baby getting onto a bottle, go ahead and reach out to me as well. It is magic@thesleepwitch.com. And more videos coming soon.